Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to episode number 31 of Cardboard Time. This is Arwen, and just wanted to say Happy New Year to everybody. I did take a little bit of a break to rest. I went home to Buffalo for a few days and got to spend some time around here in Akron doing some shopping and kind of getting ready for the hectic holidays that I had these past couple of weeks. So I had originally recorded this episode pre-vacation, but I wasn't super happy with the results, so I decided to re-record it. And I do have a full analysis of last year in the next episode, number 32, but I wanted to kind of save that for where I had some more time to get my thoughts together. Definitely didn't get my shelf of shame down to where I wanted it, and the 10 by 10 challenge that I had talked about at the beginning of the year, nowhere close. Not even close. But I did make some progress on that shelf of shame and got some old favorites to the table as well. So I think that's really all that you can ask for. Just to enjoy your time with your games. Try to reduce that shelf of shame and give those games that you've bought some love and see if you like them. And ultimately, just enjoy the company that you get to play these games with. So yeah, it was definitely a good year for me for gaming. And I hope that it was for you as well. I also wanted to thank everybody for the great feedback on the bonus episode. If you haven't listened, it does detail my journey and transition. If you're here for the games and you're just here for the games, let's not delay. Let's get right into the beer of the day. And that rhymed. It was amazing. Today's beer of the day is the Hitachino Nest White Ale by Kiyoichi Brewery in Nakashi, Japan. This is definitely towards the lighter side of the fence, heavier on the orange and coriander than I'd normally like. And somebody actually described it on Untapped as a flowery Budweiser, and I would agree with that quite a bit. I gave it a 3.25. Well, let's go ahead and check on that shelf of shame. And this isn't completely up to date. This is, again, when I updated it last, but it's fairly accurate. It is down to 152. I will get you that final count in the next episode. Down 3, 2 new additions are Witchstone and Corrosion. I picked those up at Gots A Lot of Games. I have definitely had my eye on Witchstone ever since I went to PAX. I was going to pick it up there, but again, suitcase space gets to be a little bit tough when you're flying out to a convention, so I figured that was probably one that I wanted to get when I came back. And Corrosion's one that a lot of people are talking about. Really good, crunchy engine building, which of course is my jam. So looking forward to getting that to the table. That is one that I have not been able to play yet. But I did get to play 5 games. I played Luna Capital solo. Really, really enjoyed that. I love the aesthetic of it, and the gameplay with its shrinking tile placement options was definitely hitting the spot for me playing solo. Looking forward to getting that out with some more people. I played Agropolis and Circled the Wagons with Justin and enjoyed both of those. Cape May from Thunderworks. I will have an expanded thoughts section on that very soon once I get it out to the table a couple of more times. And I also played Witchstone, which I will be talking about today. So let's not delay. Let's just get right into it. And I'm a rhyming machine today. So Witchstone was put out in 2021 last year. I can officially say that. 2 to 4 players, plays in 60 to 90 minutes. Designed by Martino Chiacheria and Dr. Reiner Knizia. The artist was Marius Gansel, and it was published by Hutch and R&R Games. In the description, I went on BGG and tried to get a description for this, but I had to kind of condense it down a little bit. As established representatives of your guild, you gather around an ancient sacred stone, the significance and magic powers of which are known to adepts only. utilizing domino tiles, with each half of the domino being a hexagon. Each domino depicts 2 different actions of the 6 you can take in the game. The larger the amount of your action icons you can place together, the more powerful the action becomes, or the more times that you can take it. So you're taking these dominoes and you're placing them on your board next to each other. Each action tends to allow you to build towards taking more actions or scoring victory points, resulting in large chains of actions towards the end of the game. The game continues for 11 rounds, and the player with the most points at the end wins. So I got this out to the table when I visited Jamie up at her shop. She had a game night and we were able to play this. Really solid components. So the crystals, the linkage gems where you're linking these different sites together in this crystal ball, really well done, really solid. There is a big red-green color blindness issue on the components. I just want to point that out to anybody who is red-green colorblind. That can definitely affect your appreciation for this game. It is quite significant in here. I chose yellow, and I think blue is in there as well. I didn't have any issues with that, and red and green did go to 2 of the players who could distinguish those, and it really didn't affect my enjoyment of the game. It felt like a lot of the core mechanisms here were very similar to Bonfire, but it did feel different enough for me that it felt like its own game. So your core mechanism of placing these tiles and taking these increasingly powerful actions definitely feels similar. I don't know how this isn't a Stefan Feld game. And for those who don't know who Stefan Feld is, he is like the Oprah of points, where you get a point, and you get a point, and you get a point. Like everything that you do on the board is going to give you some sort of points. So in this case, you get 2 points for placing your witch on the board before the game even starts, plus possibly more for making routes between areas. So there's like points to be made before you even start in this game. You're already getting some sort of points. This just continues the whole point salad thing. You are going to be scoring tons of points. So if that is your jam, this has point salad in spades. It is huge point salad. This is another game that you really wanted to do everything, but you just couldn't. I found that specialization in a few core actions definitely paid off. If you tried to spread yourself too thin, people were going to overtake you with very optimal placement and kind of building a couple of different actions up to make them super powerful. There was a lot of explaining of this game, and you really needed a round to understand. But once you got it, you're pretty much good to go. So by the time that we got through a round, everybody knew exactly what they were doing. There were some edge cases that needed to be clarified, but just about everybody was self-sufficient at that point. So it wasn't too terrible to teach, but there was definitely a lot of content to go over with that. So that is something to note if you're going to pick this one up. And for my final judgment, it's hard to tell when I'm going to get this one out again, but I am looking forward to it. It's not going to be something that I'm going to get out with my lighter groups. It's going to be more towards my heavier groups. I feel like a lot of lighter players might be a little bit lost with some of the concepts in this, but yeah, I did definitely enjoy this game. And it feels like there's enough different from Bonfire that it also deserves some shelf space. I do need to play Bonfire again to determine that, but I really just need to play Bonfire again anyways, just to play it because it's so good. But yeah, this was definitely an interesting point salad-y game. If you really like that, increasing powerful action type game, this is definitely one to check out. That is Witchstone. And stay tuned, because coming up next, we have my best games of 2021. And welcome back. So, there were so many incredible games this year that came to the table. I stopped my count from December 9th of last year, and I stopped it at December 1st of this year. And I really stopped at December 1st just so that I remember next year, hey, this goes from December 1st to December 1st. I had, again, originally envisioned this episode to drop before the new year, so I wanted to allow myself to prepare. I guess I didn't necessarily need to stop it so soon. There were 142 new to me games this year that were on that list, so a ton of new games. And again, there were so many great games this year that I played. When I have honorable mentions like this list that I'm about to share with you, you can tell that it was a really good year. When you've got games like Grand Austria Hotel, Dune Imperium, Sprawlopolis, Edge of Darkness, Res Arcana, and Tiny Towns just barely not making my list. It was a great year. So I really want to mention that. There's a lot of people that are talking about, oh, this year wasn't great for gaming. And, not all those games came out in 2021, I will admit. But there were a ton of great games that came out this year. So just wanted to mention that. And I also wanted to make a note that Stonewall Uprising wasn't mentioned in here due to the fact that it isn't released yet. We did get to play the early prototype copy of it. However, it is very, very likely to be on my top 10 next year. So I just wanted to reiterate how impressed I was with that game and how forward I'm looking to seeing it released this coming year. So let's get into our top 10, and my number 10 for the year was Monstrosity, and it's a game that I played last night for New Year's Eve. I can't state enough how much of a fantastic party game this is, and this is by far my favorite drawing game. If this hadn't come along, Pictomania would have been in this spot this year. I really loved Pictomania. I thought that was also a wonderful game. This somehow managed to even top that. We've gotten a ton of mileage around it. Just the fact of you're sitting there trying to make these crazy descriptions, and especially having a first-time player go in and listen to you, an experienced player, make these descriptions, and the look that you get when you say, this has the body of a fire hydrant, and it has buzzsaw legs. It's crazy. It's really such a crazy game. My number 10, Monstrosity. And number 9 for me this year was Furnace, and this was on a lot of people's lists this year. Furnace is a very small, quick, and compact engine building game. Super easy to teach. This was honestly a toss-up with Res Arcana. I just thought that Furnace, with the auction mechanism, just allowed a little bit more depth, and it was a little bit easier to teach. I think people can get into it a little bit quicker than they can with Res Arcana, but both of them were absolutely stellar games. Really love this. The theme is very interesting. It's a little bit dry. I can see some people not wanting to get into just this industrial kind of theme, but I really, really enjoy the mechanisms behind this, and I've gotten a lot of mileage out of Furnace, my number 9. And my number 8 is the Lost Ruins of Arnak. Deck building and worker placement combo just fit right with me. I got to playtest a solo campaign this year, which was also really cool. Really looking forward to getting this out to the table a little bit more in the new year with the Expedition Leaders expansion. I think this hit right. Dune Imperium was very close. Dune Imperium definitely has some different mechanisms, and the more that I played it, the more that I enjoyed it. But I just think Lost Ruins hits a little bit differently for me where it made the list. I really, really loved the way that Lost Ruins kind of plays. So my number 8, Lost Ruins of Arnak. And my number 7 is Garinto, and this is probably my most underrated on this list. I don't think that this sold a huge amount of copies, but it absolutely should. This is very hard to describe other than its patterned tile-taken engine building. Basically, you're going in and taking these tiles that are on the outside of the board, and you're placing them on top of these different stacks on the inside, and then using that tile, whatever's on the top of the tile, you're using that to take other tiles. And then you are taking those tiles and basically building up your engine so that you can take even more tiles to fulfill victory conditions. This really hit a lot during my surgery, and I like to revisit it occasionally. I think it's a wonderful game. Plays very well solo. Still thinking about it to this day. My number 7 is Garinto. And my number 6 is Cubitos, and this is 100% my favorite physical racing game of all time. Who doesn't love chucking handfuls of cute and colorful dice? You've got a bag building aspect to this. Being able to kind of build that engine up and make these gigantic moves towards the end of the race is so cool. You know, you're chucking 10, 11, 12 dice at a time and just trying to get that little push your luck element in there too. Maybe I can get one more roll in. This really hit for me, and I played it. It was one of the first games I actually played online pre-release with AEG, and it still hits the table quite a bit. So it's a theme that's going on through many of these, hitting the table a lot, appealing to just about everybody that I get it to the table with. My number 6, Cubitos. Well, one that hasn't gotten to the table a huge amount, but I wish that it had. Number 5 is The Gallerist, and this was my first Lacerda game. This is a very thinky game, and it's incredibly intuitive. I did not know what to expect going into my first Lacerda game. I had heard that they're incredibly heavyweight, but this really seemed very intuitive. Once I listened to the rules, kind of tried to see what mechanisms were going on, I was like, oh yeah, this is not that bad. I was really shocked at how fast I picked this up. It is thinky. Don't get me wrong, this is a very thinky game. You have a lot of options, you have a lot of choices to make, but the core systems and learning the core game itself is incredibly straightforward. And this inspired me to pick up more. I got Kanban EV, which I will get to the table very shortly. I'm looking to pick up more. I backed Weather Machine on Kickstarter already, so more Lacerda in my future, for sure. My number 5, The Gallerist. And my number 4 is another engine builder. What a surprise. Fantastic Factories. This is a game that combines engine building, dice placement, resource management, and card drafting into a very easy to teach system. This is, again, satisfied everyone that's been to the table with, and I've gotten it out a ton this past year, both solo and with other players. It hits right with everybody, and they're super quick to pick it up. The artwork is really cool. I don't even know how to describe it. It's just kind of a little bit quirky almost. I can't believe I slept on this long. Everybody was telling me how great Fantastic Factories was, and it really, truly is fantastic. My number 4, Fantastic Factories. And my number 3 is another game that I slept on way too long. That is Too Many Bones. And I've played this game solo 5 times already. I still haven't won a single game. I can't stop thinking about it. I can't stop thinking about what would I do differently? How would I approach this differently? How would I go through this encounter differently to try to give myself a better chance? This is a incredibly solid character builder, very easy to manage skirmishes, and really takes the dungeon delve and condenses it down into a very tactical experience. It is really, really cool. The components are outstanding, out of this world, as anybody who has seen this game knows, I spent way too much money on the Game Found that came out earlier this year, and I've got a lot more content coming to the table. This is one that I haven't gotten out with other players, but I'm looking forward to teaching it. It does have a little bit of a learning curve to it, but once you get into it, it is so smooth, so solid, so straightforward, and easy to manage. My number 3, Too Many Bones. Getting down to my number 2, Twilight Struggle. This one I played with Craig, and it is 2-player tug of war at its finest. Maybe until Stonewall Uprising comes to town. We're going to see how that goes. But this was absolutely worth the hype. It gets a ton of praise, and it really deserves it. I learned a ton about the Cold War that I never knew. So it's an educational tool as well as a fantastic game. It's incredibly tight. You want to do all these different actions that are going to benefit you, but some of them are actually also going to benefit your opponent that you wind up having to play at some point for the most part. So it is just an incredible experience. Just the feel of it and how it plays out is just so surreal. I can't really do it enough justice. I had this one on my shelf for so long. It was so intimidating. And once I got it to the table, it really wasn't that bad. There's a little bit of learning that goes on, but again, it's a matter of getting through it. And once you learn the mechanisms, it's incredibly smooth. Your turn structure is pretty much straightforward. Just playing a card, resolving the actions, and going forward back and forth from there. So my number 2, and one that I'm definitely hoping to get back to the table this year, Twilight Struggle. And my number 1 game of the year is Food Chain Magnate. And this is another one that sat on my shelf for the longest time, and I'm very upset about it. If I played this game 100 times, I would ask what I could do differently for number 101 and be looking forward to that play. This is like a gigantic tech tree, and I cannot get enough of it. This is a game that will never leave my shelf. I am just enamored with how tight and how complex this game plays with not a huge amount of crazy learning curve stuff that goes along with so many really, really heavy games. I loved this game. This is one that, again, the price point is a little bit prohibitive for some players. It does retail in the about $100 range at this point, the last time I checked. The expansion's not far behind that either, but this one's absolutely worth it. If you are a hobbyist, you definitely want to check this one out. This is so solid. My number 1, best game of the year. Food Chain Magnate. So that was my top 10. Please let me know what yours was. I want to hear about all those incredible games that you played this year. And hopefully we get to as many, if not more, games in this upcoming year. I'm looking forward to 2022. And speaking of looking forward to 2022, I just want to thank everyone for the listenership and community this year. It was a fantastic year of growth for us, not just on the podcast, but for me personally. And I'm really hoping that we can grow together even more in 2022. There's going to be a lot more focus on stories for the community. Again, that's something that I've talked about quite a few times in the recent past, something that I haven't acted on quite yet, but this will be kind of kicking off with a trio of wonderful interviews that I can't wait to share with all of you. Those of you who follow on my social media know who those 3 interviews are, and let me tell you, I am so incredibly excited and very fortunate that I get to share those stories with you. So speaking of my social media, make sure to take a look at our website at cardboardtime.com. My Instagram and Twitter is at cardboard_time. And if you have any questions, suggestions, or ideas for discussion topics, please email cardboardtime@gmail.com. We haven't heard any listener questions in quite a while, and I would love to get back to some of those. So please make sure that you send those in. And as always, thanks again for listening, and we'll see you in 2 weeks for another episode of Cardboard Time. Happy gaming.